Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about what not to do when studying a language. So these are things that I've been guilty of. I've seen other people doing that don't really help us. Either it's things that we are doing that delay progress or things that we neglect to do early on that stunt us later. So without further ado, I want to get to it and talk about 5 things not to do. The first thing that you should not be doing when studying a language is translating. What I mean is you should try really hard to understand the meaning of things and just talk and just read and just understand without having to translate word for word everything back into your native language. And then of course you don't want to be thinking of a specific sentence in your native language and then try to translate that into the language you're learning. Just try and study and learn the words and just try to make sentences with whatever you know how to do and just throw it out. So I will say, do look up words you don't know. If you don't know a word, look it up, figure out what it means, and then try to use it. But don't just translate everything back into your native language to understand it and then translate it back again, because that's just going to waste a lot of your time. And one of the downsides about translating is that when it comes to speaking, if you're translating everything in your head, your speaking and your ability to communicate is so much slower because you're thinking in your native language and you're never really thinking in the other language because you're constantly just translating. The second thing is you should not focus too much on detail. And what I mean is there are just some expressions, there's some grammar points that they just don't really match up to any sort of grammar or expression that you have in your native language or any language that you've learned so far. So when you study it and you see it for the first time, you have a loose understanding of what it means, but you aren't totally sure. And you're not exactly certain of like what situation you can use it and what situation not to. It could even be similar to other grammar points, at which case you're like, how do I know the difference? When do I discern which to use versus the other? And I've seen so many people who focus so hard on understanding the meaning and the usage perfectly that they will not use it. They will not practice it because they don't know exactly what it means or exactly when to use it. It's one of those things that sometimes you just won't get it. And that's okay. Just accept that you don't totally get it. I will say, just practice, just use it. You're not totally sure if the way you're using it is appropriate, but you will learn. You will learn by your mistakes. If you use it in a situation where it doesn't make sense with a native speaker, they're gonna point out like they didn't understand what you said. Or they might even rephrase the way you said it. And if you watch TV or other things and you hear it or you hear people using it, you get lots of examples about how to use it. So the more you use it, the more you listen for it, just over time, you'll develop all of these examples and then just one day you'll wake up and you'll get it and you'll know it. So don't focus too much on the details and just go with it. And this ties into my point 3. Don't just self-study. Don't just attend a class. Diversify. You should be exposing yourself to things outside of the class, to music, movies, TV, news, social media, any kind of thing that you can access via your phone, the internet, your daily life. You should expose yourself to that early on. Because I kind of learned the hard way that when you go to class and you're studying a language, you're learning a lot, but it's actually that kind of multi-dimensional experience with a language that really helps you master it. If you're going to a class, honestly, your teacher may or may not be a native speaker, and everyone in your class is surely not going to be native speakers. So you're really kind of hurt in the sense that you don't really have access to native speakers on a regular basis. And yeah, you're learning to read and write and you're practicing your talking, but you're not really like getting that feedback of like how native pronunciation would sound or how it is to communicate with a native speaker. And you could be spending years in the class or self-studying without that. So you want to diversify. If you watch TV and movies, if your level is low, use subtitles. Even then it's useful just to hear them talking. Go on social media, find websites that are kind of the kind of websites that you enjoy in your native language. See if there's websites that are similar to that in other languages. Find blogs in a foreign language. Go on YouTube. There are so many YouTubers all around the world. You can find someone who does YouTube in your target language, and a lot of those people will actually have subtitles in other languages. Okay, and then this is kind of rolling into point 4. Don't neglect listening. Don't overlook listening. Even at the early stages when you have no fucking clue what people are saying, if you watch TV or movies and listen and have subtitles and you're just reading the subtitles just to enjoy the movie, indirectly you're getting really familiar with how they sound when they speak that language. I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes I just sit in front of the TV, sit in front of YouTube, and I'm like watching something and they say something like that sounds interesting, or wow, like, you know, that sounds like a really useful word or something. And I'll just listen to them and I'll just keep repeating what they said and trying to imitate them. Honestly, if your ability is really, really low, this is still very useful because you don't necessarily need to understand a whole sentence or honestly anything that's going on. But if you're watching something and you're reading the subtitles, but you feel like you've heard this many times, just listen and repeat. It really, really helps with pronunciation, with intonation. And honestly, over time, it will help you with your listening comprehension. And I think that people forget that listening is such an important part of language learning. And especially if you're new to a language, you feel like, well, you're not gonna understand anything if you listen to it. But you will be surprised how much all that exposure will help you down the road. So don't neglect listening. If you just look at a book all day, you're never gonna get this kind of feedback of how people sound, how people speak. So do listen to as many diverse things as you can. Okay, and point number 5 is don't neglect speaking, especially with a native speaker. Even in the early days, it's so important to practice with native speakers because at the end of the day, if you want to speak this language, you want to be able to go to that country and talk with people who are natives in that language and be able to be understood and be able to understand them. That requires practice. No matter how good you are at a language, no matter how much you studied it in a class or self-studied, if you have no practice speaking, when you go to speak, you're gonna have a hard time. When it comes to speaking, it's just not gonna come that quickly to you because speaking is like muscle memory. You need to train your mouth to get used to making these expressions and just saying them quickly. So you really need to develop this skill, this muscle memory early on, right? It's so easy to find a language partner. You can find someone in your town, maybe if there's people in your city who speak the language you're studying, you can go out and try and find like in-person friends and practice with them. But honestly, because of the internet, it's so easy to find language tutors online. There's language exchange websites, language exchange apps. It's so easy to find someone. Actually, I just signed up for italki classes just to have conversations, just conversation class with Korean and with French. And I think after I do this for a couple weeks, I'll probably give a little bit of a review on my experience. But honestly, it's so easy to find a language partner. Do not neglect that early on. It will be something, no matter if you start it early or later, you have to do. So start it sooner. Otherwise, it's gonna hurt you later on, trust me. Okay, and that's it, guys. I just wanted to talk about a few things that I see that people do or don't do that could possibly be hurting their language learning. And I just wanted to give a little bit of tips and advice to help you make the most of your language learning time, especially if you're starting a language from scratch. And yeah, so if you have any other thoughts on this topic or you felt there's something I left out, please feel free to write down below in the comment section. And if you liked this video, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I put out videos every Tuesday, and I will see you later.